They can't sue the industry. They can't even complain about it on television or mention it on social media. And neither can actual experts, physicians and nurses, for example. They've been silenced. You know this perfectly well. Biden knew this. He was flacking for these companies the minute he got to the podium, just like he flacked for the credit card companies in Delaware. Many of the people he was speaking to last night in the room are invested in that industry. But he never said a word about it. That's odd. Jason Whitlock is the host of Fearless. He watched last night's speech. He thought it was a little weird, too, and we're happy to have him on tonight to assess. Jason, thanks so much for joining us. What'd you think?
It was infuriating last night, and I liked your monologue and the way you framed it up. I think there were two different State of the Union addresses.
Yeah.
The first one was the State of the New World Order, and he was talking about bringing unity to all the people around the globe and the countries around the globe and NATO and all that and what we could do if we were unified. And then I thought after he got done addressing Ukraine and all that, then he pivoted to, well, let me get to some of President Trump's talking points and adopt them as my own. Now he wants to bring manufacturing jobs back. Now he wants to make it here in America. Now he wants to fund the police. Now he wants to secure the border. The second part of that speech, and this all was a clever sleight of hand. This guy's a globalist. He's worried about global issues. That's why he left China out of this, because if he really wants to talk about the biggest threat to America and what's really influencing American culture and undermining American values and taking our country in the wrong direction, it's China. But he avoided that and wants to be seen as this great unifier of the globe. You can't be a great unifier of the rest of the world if you're not legitimately promoting unity here at home among Americans. The Ukraine and what's going on there would have been a great jumping off point to explain to Americans why we legitimately need to unify. If America is not a light unto the world, if we don't have our act together, the rest of the world is going to fall into chaos. We look weak, we look disunified, and so therefore I think Putin feels emboldened, and we're going to see China perhaps feel emboldened and make a move on Taiwan. Joe Biden, that speech was infuriating. It was inauthentic. It was, the second half of it was all about polls that are telling them they're going to get trashed in the midterm elections. And so Joe Biden pivots in the second half of that with a choreographed. The most infuriating thing to me was the choreographed moment when the Democrats started chanting USA, USA, USA. And I'm like, these are the people that have been denigrating this country for the last 5 years. We're systemically racist. We're irredeemably racist. Transgender people have no shot. No one does. We must rewrite the Constitution. Our founding fathers are all garbage. Now it's USA, USA, because they're getting killed in the polling and they think they're going to lose the midterm elections. Just inauthentic and just, it was infuriating. I was, first time I've ever watched the State of the Union. I haven't watched a bunch, but that's the first time I was like, this lying piece of president.
The good news is I do think voters know who dislikes them. They can smell it. And if voters are allowed to decide, I'm skeptical. But if they are, in the midterms, they'll be punished. Jason Whitlock, thank you so much, as always.
Thank you, Tucker.
So as you just heard Jason note, a lot of last night's speech, the second half, the part about this country, consisted of a lot of policies that sounded pretty familiar if you watched the last president speak. Here is a sample.
Make more cars and semiconductors in America. More. It's time for America to get back to work. We need to secure our border and fix the immigration system. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them. Fund them.
We were never for defunding the police. That's a lie. It's Russian disinformation. Dana Perino is a very nice person, a very smart person. She's actually worked in politics. She watched us carefully last night. She's, of course, co-host of America's Newsroom and The Five, and our friend. Dana, great to see you tonight. What'd you think?
Great to see you, too. Well, I You've often said that I'm a very nice person, and I appreciate that. And I do always try to go into these speeches with an open mind and to try to look for something where I could say, that was a good line. That was really smart. I really liked how they pulled that together. But last night I watched in such complete and total frustration. You're a man, Tucker, who is really a genius at the written word, and as somebody who probably has the William Safire book on his shelf, Lend Me Your Ears, of all the great speeches, this was just not up to par. Okay, this is something that you might have seen a college student on the speech team be able to put together. A lot of the things also was that there were, as you were just pointing out, poll-tested outcomes that poll very well, like Made in America, cure cancer, fix the border, refund the police. But there was nothing under them. And also, there was just no way to put it all together. There was no rhetorical lift or rhetorical grace. There was no, there were a couple of moments. I think that the nod to Stephen Breyer, the retiring Supreme Court Justice, and his nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, that's a nice moment. The young kid who has suffers from the diabetes and needs his insulin, loved that. But again, even there was a missed moment for humanity, right? The president says, and it was his birthday yesterday. Well, then, clue. Sing happy birthday.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we do, like have a human moment. So I have to say I was very frustrated. And then I was kind of surprised myself because I was so kind of mad about it. I said, let me sleep on it and see how I feel when I wake up. And when I woke up, I felt the same way.
I just got to, super quick, but the cure cancer, I mean, if you try and fly from Denver to Philadelphia right now, the chances are you're going to be delayed because the infrastructure is just kind of caving in on itself. But they're going to cure cancer in their spare time?
Well, it's a wonderful goal, right? But one of the things that he talked about earlier in the speech was having Medicare negotiate all of your drug prices for you, which if you want actually great innovative drugs to fight cancer, you don't want to hamstring the companies that would do that. So I think that he is sandwiched, right? His base is depressed. The independents are unimpressed. So he is just squeezed, and midterms are base elections, and he's sitting at 37%.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the good news. Dana Perino, it's great to see you. Great to see you. Thank you for that.
Great to see you, too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So Russian forces captured a significant Ukrainian city today. It's the first that has fallen since fighting began last week. Meanwhile, the massive Russian convoy outside Kiev remains stalled for days now. We'll have live updates from that country next. So all of a sudden, people who are in positions of actual authority, who should be responsible, are pushing to go to war with Russia. Adam Kinzinger has called for war with Russia, of course, saying U.S. planes should shoot down Russian jets. The president of Ukraine is now demanding that the United States fight Russia on behalf of Ukraine. Today, the New York Times published an op-ed from another Ukrainian official making the same demand. So is this wise? What would happen if we did that? Tulsi Gabbard is one of the only prominent people in American life who's thought that through. She's been both a soldier and a legislator. We spoke to her for a brand new episode of Tucker Carlson today, and she explained where this could go. Watch.
It's striking that balance between making sure that we have a strong national defense, that our men and women in uniform are trained, they are ready, and that they have what they need in order to be able to serve our country when and where needed. Combine that and balance that with the need for our political leaders to see the world as it is through a realistic lens, not some fantasy world that we wished existed or some fantasy conditions that we hope might be in place, but see the world with a realistic view and have the strength to be able to make those decisions based on, is this mission in the best interest of our country's security and the American people? And if it is not, have the strength to exercise restraint, to make sure that we're recognizing both the short-term and long-term consequences of that decision, whichever way it may be, serves the interests of our people. It's as simple as that. It's not a nice, this is the thing, as soon as Tulsi Gabbard is against regime change war. She must be an isolationist. She wants to, kind of have America turn our back to the world. This is a tactic of those who are neocons and neolibs who try to mischaracterize this balanced approach to exercising a strong national defense while also exercising restraint, which is what a responsible leader should do.
God, it's so shocking to me that you almost never hear anyone articulate it as clearly as you just did, since that should be on the tips of every leader's tongue, right there, which is exactly what you just said. And that, too, it's considered so controversial. Is it that you're saying that out loud points up their failure? Is that what it is? Because clearly they didn't do what you just said.
It exposes where their loyalties really lie, to get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Where they're making decisions that will turn out to be big paydays for the military-industrial complex, these big defense contractors who are making a ton of money already off of this new Cold War we are in. It exposes the fact that their loyalty is not the thing that it should be at the foremost of their mind and their decision-making, is not what's in the best interest of the American people. It's not what's in the best interest of our national security. And we know this is not just me saying this. We can look time and time and time again throughout history, these decisions have been made that have actually undermined our national security.
Yes.
Made us less safe, caused us great cost, both in lives as well as in taxpayer dollars. Obviously, what Putin is doing is absolutely terrible. This war is a tragedy. His attack and invasion into Ukraine should not have happened, and it needs to stop. When we look at the responsibility that leaders, President Biden, leaders of NATO, Putin, Zelensky, the leaders of the world have, is to think about what is in the best interest of the people, to find a way to sit down and negotiate an end to this war, rather than making their decisions based on their geopolitical chest thumping. Because it is the people who are really the pawns who are suffering as a result of their so-called power plays. This is what needs to happen, and it needs to happen now, because as many people as have been killed already, as many people who are suffering already, as much destruction as there has already been, this is still very small in comparison to the destruction that and death and suffering that we will continue to see.
When she served in Congress as a Democrat, by the way, Tulsi Gabbard was frequently denounced as a radical. She wasn't radical in the clip you just heard. Go ahead and watch the full hour on Fox Nation, and you will hear not radicalism, but its opposite. Wise, calm decision-making with America's interest at the heart of it. You'd expect that from everyone. You're getting it from virtually no one but Tulsi Gabbard. Well, Joe Biden announced he has a plan to fight rising gas prices. He wants to tap into the country's strategic petroleum reserves. Will that work, and for how long? Is that really an answer? This is all about energy. Is this actually a plan to increase the value of renewable energy? Then, the cost of fertilizer is about to go way up, which means the cost of food is about to go way up. No one's told you details on that. We're going to. Straight ahead. Strategic petroleum reserves and how they may affect gas prices. Fox's Matt Finn is following that story for us tonight. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Tucker. Well, here in Los Angeles, at the nearest gas station right outside of this studio, a gallon of regular gas right now is $5.49. Across the country, Americans are seeing some of the highest gas prices in history. President Biden is facing bipartisan pressure to end Russian oil imports and to rely more on domestic sources. During his State of the Union address last night, the president made this announcement.
I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world.
Here in the U.S., the president will release 30 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. 30 million barrels would cover less than 2 days of national demand. The Energy Information Administration reports the U.S. consumed an average of 18 million barrels of oil per day in 2020. Oil industry experts say it's unclear how this emergency release will impact fuel prices. The reserve where this oil is coming from is along the Louisiana and Texas Gulf coasts. It was holding more than 582 million barrels of crude oil in mid-February, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Tucker.
Matt Finn, thanks so much for that.
Thank you.
Well, you heard the mannequin say it. We're going to punish the Russian economy, but it's not going to affect our economy. But wait a second. Aren't all global economies linked because of policies that you and your party have supported for decades? That's why you're called globalists. So how is shutting down one economy not going to affect every other economy? And of course it will. Wait till you hear what's about to happen to fertilizer, which is the basis of food. Turns out Russia doesn't simply supply energy to the entire world. It is a major supplier of every crop nutrient farmers need. That means, thanks to American and European sanctions, your grocery bill is about to get much, much bigger. Ben Rinchi is an expert on this subject. He owns and runs the Blue Diamond Farming Company in Iowa. He farms more than 16,000 acres in the state. So again, he would know. Ben Rinchi joins us tonight. Ben, thanks so much for coming on. It's embarrassing how little most people know about fertilizer, where it comes from, what it means. But tell us the implications of this, sanctions.
Soaring fertilizer prices are likely to spike food prices. If you're upset that gas is up $1 or $2 a gallon, wait till your grocery bill is up $1,000 a month. And it might not just manifest itself in terms of price. It could be quantity as well. Empty shelf syndrome may just be starting.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Up $1,000 a month? I mean, that,
sure.
You know.
The price of growing my crops, or the major crops of corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, cotton, are up 30 to 40%. They are on my farm, and most of that is fertilizer. Nitrogen prices are up 3 times from the last crop we put in. Phosphorus and potassium have doubled. The planting season in the Northern Hemisphere is just weeks away. There's no miracle technology that can cut that in half or a third. It's a pretty fixed formula. For me to grow an acre of corn on my farm, I need 200 pounds of nitrogen, 200 pounds of phosphorus, and 100 pounds of potash. It's going to be hard how this plays out. Will farmers switch to other crops that produce less? We're certainly not going to literally pour on the groceries to grow this crop.
I mean, it's only food. I mean, are you saying this is an essential product for people?
Well, it pretty much is, and there's some pretty likely culprits on this. As you detailed, the number one thing is natural gas. It's the key stock of most fertilizer inputs, especially ammonium fertilizer inputs. But then we've got supply chain woes that came from the pandemic, a few hurricanes that knocked down some supply sources. But what's really affecting the ESG things, this could kind of be described as the food crisis of the Green New Deal. To elaborate, policies that have made us more dependent on foreign energy, energy plants that have been decommissioned from other power sources and transitioned to natural gas and thus competing against the fertilizer input stocks, Wall Street taking an activist investor role with strategic plant closures. But the kingpin in this, the worst part for a farmer, is this action that's been taken by the International Trade Commission. Tariffs that they put in place creating monopolies that we can't buy from friendly parties that have a third of the supplies.
This is so crazy. I can't think of a segment that's bothered me more than what you just said. Ben Rinchi, I hope you'll come back.
I sure would like to.
Greater length. I hope that you will. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
A man who farms 16,000 acres knows what he's talking about. Meanwhile, in Washington, the FCC is about to vote on one of Joe Biden's nominees to oversee media, who is a full-blown lunatic and would like to censor this channel. Censorship, okay. Plus, the most bizarre moments, some of them hilarious, of last night's State of the Union. We haven't showed you this yet.